The Galapagos Islands are a little paradise. The landscapes, made of beaches of white sand and craters of young volcanoes, are breathtaking. But the most spectacular feature of the Galapagos is their unique ecosystem. It is from his observations of the endemic animals of the islands that Charles Darwin deduced the theory of evolution. Symbolized by marine iguanas and giant turtles, the islands have been declared Biosphere Reserve by the UNESCO, and 97% of their area is protected. But, despite the government's heavy efforts to preserve its unicity, this fascinating place is fragile in front of climate change, tourism, industrial fishing, pollution of water, and invasive species.
The Galapagos Islands are of volcanic origin. They are pretty young in geological timescales. Indeed, the archipelago is still forming. The volcanic activity is high, causing continuous eruptions. The islands form in the Pacific Ocean, 1,000 kilometers from the Ecuadorian mainland. The key factor to their high and unique biodiversity is the distance from the continent. Species arriving to the islands through migration were isolated, and with time, they evolved differently than anywhere else. The Galapagos have one of the highest rates of endemism, 80% of the land birds, 97% of the reptiles and land mammals, 20% of the marine species, and more than 30% of the plants can only be found in this archipelago. At the end of the 50s, Galapagos became a national park. Since then, tourists have come from all over the world to discover these fantastic islands. In 1979, the UNESCO declared it National Heritage for Humanity, recognizing its outstanding biological diversity and universal value.
There are many wonderful things to do in Galapagos. You can either take a cruise around the islands, which unfortunately was out of our budget, or do some highlands hopping by yourself. We visited the islands of Santa Cruz and Isabela.
On Santa Cruz, one of the must-see is Tortuga Bay. It is a beautiful white sand beach. Walking around close to the mangroves, you will find marine iguanas resting on the beach. They are endemic to the Galapagos. All other iguanas are land animals. These marine iguanas have impressively evolved to their environment. Eating algae, they are able to swim and to drink seawater. But watch out, they might spit. They have glands filtering the excess salt from their blood. Then, they spit it from their nose. That's why they have a white spot on their face.
Another beautiful spot in Santa Cruz is Las Gretas. This creek, around 10 meters deep, is a mix of saline and fresh water. I think there's no better place in the world to jump in the water.
On Isabela Island, we could hike all the way up the Sierra Negra. The last eruption of this volcano was in 2005. The caldera is 10 kilometers wide, the third largest in the world. At the bottom, it is solid lava. The lighter lava is older, while the darker lava leaked in the crater in the last eruption. We walked around the caldera until the eruption point. We felt as if we were on the moon.
The volcanic activity of Isabela also produced the tunelas de lava. This rock structure, by the sea, is ideal for snorkeling. The small passages through the lava tunnels stop the big predators from entering the area. Thanks to that, the lava tunnels are full of life.
Galapagos is all about nature. Breathtaking landscapes, incredible and unique biodiversity. You feel like you have found a paradise on Earth, a paradise we should protect.
And here we are at the Charles Darwin Research Station, where we actually can get more information about those animals, the way they live, and the conservation efforts that have been made by this center to preserve the biodiversity of those islands. The Charles Darwin Research Station has for objective to provide scientific knowledge for the conservation and protection of the Galapagos ecosystem. There, we could learn about the magnitude of the problem of invasive species. When humans landed to the Galapagos, they brought with them plants, domestic animals, and other undesired species like rats and insects. When these arrived on the Galapagos Islands, they started to compete with the endemic species, putting some of them in danger. The international scientists working at the center now try to control their impact. For example, the cottonication scale, which is an insect that was feeding on the plants, was wiped off by introducing its natural predator, ladybugs. More violent. Without predator, the goat population grew up to 100,000 individuals, and they were devouring the vegetation that tortoises depended on. So the authorities got soldiers on helicopters, and they shot the totality of the goats in a couple of years. It worked. The vegetation grew back, helping to rebuild the tortoise population. However, there still are problems that have not been solved. Blackberry bushes and guava trees are everywhere on Isabella Island, and they take the place of other plants that were there before. There's also flies and ants that lay eggs in the nest of Darwin finches, and who feed on the chicks. So, while scientists are working on the current problems, they have put some measures to prevent the entry of new invasive species. For example, all the bags are inspected when people arrive from the continent or where they change island.
The national park is in charge of other conservation efforts like the tortoise breeding centers. We visited the ones on Isabela and on Santa Cruz. In there, tortoises can grow and reproduce in a safe environment. This is especially important as the 11 endemic species of giant tortoises from the Galapagos are endangered. Humans start hunting them for their meat and oil as soon as they first arrived to the islands, centuries ago. Moreover, goats destroying their habitat, rats eating their eggs, dogs killing the babies have caused 5 species to already disappear since the islands were discovered, while the remaining species are in danger of extinction. The breeding centers have had some amazing results. When they were founded, the population of all the tortoises was 3,000 individuals. Nowadays, 40 years later, it is estimated to be 20,000. Many of these individuals have been brought back to nature, and some of them, like the Española tortoise, are now reproducing naturally.
The human population in the Galapagos is another big challenge. Long inhabited, the Galapagos Islands now host at least 26,000 permanent residents, and welcome around 250,000 tourists every year. Human population puts a lot of pressure on the ecosystem. Pollution, consumption of resources, introduction of invasive species, reduction of natural habitats. As an effort to keep the population under control, it is illegal for someone who is not born in the Galapagos or married to a resident to live there permanently, even for Ecuadorians. However, despite this law, the permanent population keeps on growing every year. The problem is that most of the island's economy depends on tourism, and tourism brings wealth, which, in return, attracts Ecuadorians from the mainland for well-paid jobs. Tourism is also somehow regulated, but despite their efforts, the local and tourist populations keeps on growing exponentially. Everyone must pay a fee to enter the Galapagos. Half of this money goes to the local authorities and the other half to the national park. At the beginning, tourism was conceived as a source of revenue to sustain research and conservation activities, but unfortunately, now human presence is becoming a threat for the preservation of the islands. This control will be one of the greatest challenges for the Ecuadorian authorities in the upcoming years.
As if these challenges were not enough, the islands are also vulnerable to illegal fishing and climate change. The Galapagos Marine Reserve is one of the most biodiverse in the world. But enforcing fishing regulations is difficult due to lack of resources. Not so long ago, in August 2017, the Ecuadorian Coast Guard caught a Chinese fishing boat in the marine reserve with 300 tons of endangered shark species. Also, just last month, the Galapagos Islands were added to the United Nations list of natural world heritage sites that are at serious risk due to global warming. It is hard to predict how these ecosystems will cope with the changes to come. The Galapagos Islands are a true wonder, a wonder that nature has allowed us to discover and enjoy. But visiting this small paradise, it reminded us that as many other wonders in the planet, it is very fragile.
And therefore it is our responsibility to protect it, whether you're a local, a tourist, a scientist, or part of the international community. Because after all, we are all part of this world.
We hope you have all enjoyed this video. It is the third of a series that we are making about our travels in Latin America, and at least for now, the last one in Ecuador.
The next one is going to be in Peru, close to Cusco in the Valle Sagrado. So if you don't want to miss it, or if you want to see it, just click here.
Or if you don't want to miss any of our videos, you could subscribe to our channel over here.
Hasta pronto!